like to start our presentation. I like to keep on time as best as we can, so I'm going to hand this over to Dr. Theodosopoulos, our chairman of the math department.
Am I right over here, Steve? Okay. Hello, very nice to see all of you here. Thank you, this is my first year here. I already recognize some of your faces. We'll start with math, and you know, I've been accused of having the longest presentation, so I'll try to go as quickly as possible. But on the upside, I and all the other department chairs will be available after this in the Walker Gallery if you have questions to come and see us. And of course, you should feel free to get in touch with me, and I'm sure I speak for my colleagues as well. At any time, you can email us, call us. I'd be happy to talk to you individually. Okay, so the way that this presentation is put together is along 6 paths. And that depends on what your student comes in with. So the first 3 paths are very similar with one another, and they all presume that your student has come in without having Algebra 1. So they will take Algebra 1. That will be the first course they will take. There's no choice there. That's in freshman year. And then the choices begin already from sophomore year. They can choose to take Algebra 2 to follow Algebra 1, or, and that we call the Algebra 1, Algebra 2 path, or they could choose to take Geometry in sophomore year and then take Algebra 2 in junior year, and that would be the Algebra 1 Geometry path. After that, after they complete those 3 core requirements by junior year, then they have all the upper school electives available to them, including pre-calculus and several other ones that we can talk to later on. So this path specifically that is now being shown is the Algebra 1 Geometry path. If you go back for just one sec, Steve, at sophomore year, if you were to take Geometry, there are 2 different versions, 2 different flavors of geometry you can take. There's the standard Euclidean geometry, which we have been offering for a number of years, and there's a new course in geometry called Applied Geometry that we're offering for the first time next year. And this basically will fulfill the same requirements. The students will learn all the same core concepts of geometry, but through applications of geometry in architecture, engineering, you know, the arts, and many other areas. So it's meant more for kids who want to have a hands-on access to geometry, much more project-based. Okay, if we move on now to Algebra 2, in junior year, there are also 2 versions of Algebra 2. There's the standard version of Algebra 2 we've been offering for years now. And then there is a new course that we offer for next year, and this is a course that Mrs. Agesti, the chair of the science department, and I designed to co-teach from the premise that there's no better place to learn algebra, especially Algebra 2, than physics. Many of the applications we use in our Algebra 2 class come from physics. So this is meant specifically for kids, juniors, who want to take physics and want to take algebra, have not taken Algebra 2 yet, and it's a coordinated class. So they meet 6 times a week. They take both classes effectively, but we're both present, we're both available. So it's a cohort approach where they do a series of projects that are between our classes, and we're very excited about it. It's a new offering, and it builds on our interdisciplinary offerings as well. And then the upper class electives, which for these paths I'm showing you now become available only in senior year after Algebra 2, include some of the classes you've seen before, like pre-calculus and statistics, but also some new and exciting offerings like mathematical biology, which is a class that I will co-teach with my wife, who teaches in the science department. It is a course that we developed in our previous school, and we were very excited to bring here as well. That can be taken for either science or math credit, depending on how the student chooses or their advisor chooses to do it. And it's an entirely interdisciplinary class. There's a course of topics in applied mathematics, a very project-based this course is based on a sequence of projects where the kids get to see all the math they've seen until then, including algebra, geometry, and so on, in applied contexts. There is college algebra, a new offering that follows up on the previous algebra experience that the kids have. And this is primarily meant for students who aren't interested in the college route. They're not interested in the calculus route for college. And, for example, some of our athletes, or maybe seniors or PGs, who need to consolidate their algebra skills. So, and it is what it says. It's a college algebra class. It's equivalent to a class they would take in college called algebra. And then, finally, there's an accounting and entrepreneurship class, a new offering here at WORCESTER Academy that we expect will generate a lot of interest, especially among our seniors who, again, might not be interested in pursuing calculus specifically, but are very interested in seeing math in a context that will matter to them later on in life. For example, in how to run a business, how to write a business plan, and how to make a pitch for financing, and things like that. And this will be, again, very project-based. The students will develop business plans and present them and compete. And so it's very exciting. All right, so this is the first path. The second path is basically the same, except for the switch between sophomore and junior year. So we can go through that very quickly. So you can take algebra 2 instead first, and then geometry. Otherwise, it's the same. The third path introduces a final new course if you go into sophomore year. This course that we call analytic geometry is a particularly demanding course that we designed specifically with the strongest and most independent mathematics students in mind. The idea is that in that one course in sophomore year, for example, they will fulfill both requirements of algebra 2 and geometry. It would be and some of you may have heard or maybe even have taken, traditionally this is a course that has been offered in other schools called analytic geometry. It is the way of combining geometry and algebra together. And we have some very dedicated teachers who are excited about teaching this class. So this is going to be a way for students to accelerate through the curriculum. Now, having said that, so this is the upside, right? The downside is twice as much homework, most likely, I am told. Also, a lot more independence in the sense that the student will be expected to carry effectively a double load in this one class, right? But what it will enable them to do is reach the upper class electives sooner. So it does not count as 2 classes. You still need a 3rd class to graduate as far as graduation requirements are concerned. But it does fulfill the prerequisite requirements for the upper class electives. Okay, and so we as advisors now, and me as department chair, we will be looking very closely at who might, in fact, thrive in a class like that. So this is not to be taken lightly, especially in our first year. We want it to succeed, so we'll look very closely at the kids for whom this might be a good idea. Okay, having gone through these first 3 paths, I will very briefly say the following 3 paths at the bottom of this presentation. This is a bit confusing here, I know, are very similar to these, except they're meant for kids who come into 9th grade with Algebra 1 already. So think of all of this and push it back one step. So they could now, in freshman year, take either Algebra 2 or Geometry, same options as before. And then the other one in sophomore year. So their first years are taken, but they do still have options, right? And then by junior year already, they are taking upper class electives. Which means, if you go through a little quickly, Steve, it means that by junior year, they could choose to take one of the electives, or they could take pre-calculus. Oh, so they could take, the electives junior and senior year, or they could take pre-calculus in junior year. Sorry, there you go. Which would then mean that, I'm sorry, we spent a lot of time with this, so I know where he's at. But if they take pre-calculus in junior year, then they could go on and take calculus in senior year, or they could take any of the other electives in senior year. So the AP classes that we offer, calculus and statistics, are accessible to them at that point. And I suppose the final thing, the final path would be all the way at the end. So this is the same one as before, except again, freshman, sophomore have been swapped, otherwise it's the same thing. So this is, yeah, if you go through it quickly. Then the final path is for a very strong incoming freshman who has taken Algebra 1, who might in fact be well fit to take analytic geometry in freshman year. Again, this is a very demanding path, and I'm of two minds about whether or not freshmen are sufficiently mature to do this. Nevertheless, it is an option, and it's one that we will look very closely at. These students would then be able to effectively, after freshman year, have fulfilled all the core prerequisite requirements, and so already by sophomore year they could be taking classes like pre-calculus or some of the upper class electives, which would then, in due time, allow them to take multivariable calculus by in a sequence of courses in senior year, or take 2 electives or whatever. So, and the end story, and I think I've taken way more time than I should, but we're trying to add diversity to the program. We're trying to give more choices to the students, and we fully appreciate that this means the burden on the advisor and the department chairs is that much higher. So thank you for your attention, and feel free to come and talk to me afterwards with questions. I appreciate it. I will pass it on to, I think, Derek to get started.
Wonderful. How's everybody doing? Good. All right, excellent. So I'm going to talk about science offerings. I'm so excited about science offerings because I think we do a great job of teaching science at Worcester Academy. So I want to talk a little bit about the offerings, and hopefully you guys will get a good sense about what's available, what your students can take, and why science at Worcester Academy is awesome, right? So the first thing you need to know is you need to take 3 years of science. One of those 3 years has to be biology, and then the other 2 you can fill in with whatever you would like, as long as they're full year lab classes. If you talk to Mr. Baker, right there, he will instruct you that it's probably best if you take biology, chemistry, and physics. So really, almost all of our students will take biology, chemistry, and physics in their freshman, their sophomore, and their junior years. That's the best thing you can do to increase your odds of getting to a great college, because colleges are looking for those 3 core science classes. So that's what you have to start with, and it's important that you understand what the requirements are. You'll also notice, if you look in the guide that was handed out or that you might have grabbed, that there are 3 levels to those 3 core classes, right? Last year, or this current year, there's a fundamental level, there's just like a regular level, and then there's an honors level. Next year, we're changing the naming scheme a little bit, so you should be aware of that. It's important. The lowest level will now be just a regular level. So for example, if we're talking about biology, the lowest level is called biology. Then the next level is called accelerated biology, and the highest level is called honors biology. So there are 3 levels because we feel that students should be placed in one of those 3 levels that allows them to have success. And some students have success in science really well, and so they go to our honors level. And other students are not a math and science person. Like, I'm sure there's many of you in this room who are like, math and science? No thank you, right? So that's why a regular level class, or maybe even a lower level class, is great for that student, right? Where they can spend their time excelling in something else that they really love, but also get a good fundamental understanding of science in a level that's appropriate for them, right? So biology in the freshman year, and then if we go to the sophomore year, that's where some things start to become available to students if they want to start doubling. Doubling, I think, is a great thing for kids who are really excited about science. So if you have one of those kids who's like, Mom, I love science. I want to take 2 science classes. You have to be like, okay. We have to make sure you're doing a lot of other stuff is going on in your life, right? And in the sophomore year, you can start to do that. So in the sophomore year, we suggest you take chemistry, and then we have some electives that open up for you, robotics and introduction to engineering. Great classes, which are more STEM and STEAM focused, especially the introduction to engineering class. And then in the junior year, we move from chemistry, and then physics becomes available in your junior year, And this is where a lot of students start to double. So doubling is only recommended for kids who are super strong in science. If you double, then you're dropping a course somewhere else. And you have to figure out with your child where the best place is to drop a course if they want to double in science. So physics is up there, and then we have these year-long electives, AP Chem, AP Bio, Honors Environmental Science, that's a great class. Experimental Design, another really good open-ended class, and then Mathematical Biology. And then down here, some semester electives, Ecologies of Worcester and New England. This is a very place-based class, so the students are out of the classroom a lot, as well as Honors Environmental Science, another class where students are out of the classroom a lot, spend a lot of time out in the field collecting data, so I think that's really good. Astronomy, and then this Projects in STEAM class, which is the next step after our Introduction to Engineering. And then in the senior year, this is where you see that there's no core class, there's no bio, there's no chem, and there's no physics. Because in the senior year, a lot of the students have already taken those core classes, and so now you go into the full year electives or the semester electives. So full year electives, AP Physics C, this is our calculus-based physics class, so you need to have taken calculus before you take this class. AP Physics 2, this is algebra-based, sort of a second semester physics class. Organic Chemistry, which is a great class which follows AP Chemistry. So this class is great. This will be the third year that we're running it next year. It follows the AP Chem curriculum, and it gives students a really great look into what might be a second year college level course. Organic Chemistry is a second year college course, and students at Worcester Academy have the opportunity to take it. Genetics, bioethics, and biotech, this is a new elective for next year. It's a full year elective that will follow AP Biology. So we know that we do a great job teaching science. We also know that we have really strong kids in science that come to Worcester Academy. And so we're trying to develop some courses that fit that requirement or fit the needs of our students. And then we have Honors Anatomy and Physiology, Human Anatomy, both great classes, especially if your son or daughter is looking to do anything in the medical field. These are great classes that typically aren't available at other high schools. And then 2 semester electives, actually just the one here, Advanced Projects in STEAM, which would follow the regular level projects in STEAM that you saw in class 5. So a wide variety of things to do here, but I think the thing to come away with science is take 3 core classes, and then add in whatever you are really excited about. Take an AP class because you love that discipline, right? I love bio. I want to take AP Bio, right? Don't encourage your child to take AP Bio just to take an AP Science class. That's really what we want to avoid. If your student loves bio, but they're like, I'm not sure about AP Bio, encourage them to take Anatomy and Physiology. Encourage them to take Environmental Science. Encourage them to take a class where they can excel, but they're not going to be pushed outside of their comfort level to an extent where they're going to be struggling and they're not going to thrive. So 3 core classes, and then fill in whatever your kid loves, right? Okay? I think Mr. Epstein is up, so he's going to talk about innovation and design.
Hi, good evening. It's great to see so many familiar faces and a sea of many. So I'm here to talk about innovations in design and tech. And so in order to understand this department, I want to take you back to kind of a medium-sized Jason when I was in middle school. And my mother will attest, with not so happy times, I was the kind of kid who liked to take stuff apart. Sometimes I put it back together. But it was about tinkering, it was about discovery, and she happily really encouraged me to follow down these paths. And so now, with education, we're looking at ways for students to be more innovative, to really push the envelope, to mix creativity with math and science, to mix their imagination and reality. And so we offer courses that not only cross-discipline, we've got courses that are co-listed with math and science, we have classes that encourage heavy arts, we have it all, we have computer coding. And this is just a sampling of some of the things that we do. You can see like robotics and projects in STEAM. They're cross-listed with the science department. Digital broadcasting with Mr. Scott. These are for kids who want to get into filmmaking, television, radio, really work with the media. 3D design and printing. We have 3D printers here on campus, but we really want to explore the design process and what it takes to make a model before you actually 3D print it. E-textiles, something we've done in the middle school, which is making wearable technology, sewing circuitry and lights and sensors into your clothing or into a teddy bear or a stuffed owl. I mean, there are so many different opportunities. But what overarches all of this is the urge to create, the urge to imagine, the urge to innovate. I don't want to leave computer science off. We offer AP Computer Science, which is something that you'll probably read a lot about if you read anything in the news on education. Computer science, coding, very big. So we offer a new class starting next year called Computational Thinking. It's a precursor to AP Computer Science. Some kids have the background, they take Algebra 2, they're ready to go. Other kids need a little more training on that linear logical thinking, understanding algorithms, that kind of stuff. So computational thinking will start getting them into that modality and getting them prepped for AP Computer Science. That may not be your route that you want to take, and so we've got other classes. Robotics does have a programming aspect, but it also has the mechanical aspect. Projects in STEAM is wide open. This year they're focusing on aquaponics. If you're not sure what that is, I'll be here after. I can happily explain it now. But the beauty of it is that it's not limiting. It is elective based, so it's not going to fulfill any of your core requirements with certain exceptions. But we think it's important that your students have the ability to find their passions, follow those passions, and learn more about them in a safe and creative and a place where it's fun to fail, because failing just means you get to try again. So with that, I think I'm passing over to the next creative department in the arts. I look forward to hopefully seeing a lot of your kids in our upper school classes.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me? So I'm Elizabeth Bowles. This is my colleague Eliza Hale, and we are the co-chairs of the Visual and Performing Arts Department. Every student entering Worcester Academy has to take 3 semesters, 1.5 years of visual and performing arts. We have lots of wonderful courses in art, music, and theater to help your child have a great time meeting those requirements. But many, many, many of our students go well beyond those requirements, and we're really happy that they do. As you begin to look with your child about looking at their 4-year plan, we would like to remind you that although these are requirements, kids do not have to get them out of the way in their freshman and sophomore year. I had the privilege this past fall of teaching a wonderful group of juniors and seniors at a course called Explorations in Craft, and they were very, very grateful for a certain amount of break in their day with a heavy AP and advanced class schedule to really have a time in their day that they could explore a different aspect of themselves. Over the past 2 years, we've expanded our offerings tremendously and made a lot of full-year requirements into semester length so that your student can get into the stuff that they're really interested in more quickly. And I think there's a lot of great stuff here for you to look at. So we'll start with visual art. All the courses in visual art start with the prerequisite Introduction to Visual Art. Okay? This is a great course, not only in terms of leading them into visual arts, but giving them a lot of skills that will serve them well in project-based learning and some of the other exciting course offerings that you've heard from innovation and science. I would love to have said I had this many choices when I was in high school, but I did not. An awful lot of choices: architecture, ceramics, drawings, etc. So once that initial requirement is over with, kids can go in all kinds of different directions. So you might have a student who knows what their passion is right off the bat. They've been looking at the architecture models for years, and they can't wait to get to that class. And that's wonderful. There's a clear path to go through that. But you may have a child who doesn't really know where their passion lies. And so we have semester-length introductory offerings in all of the different disciplines so that your child can maybe discover a passion along the way. There's nothing wrong with going from art to music to theater. As you read through the course descriptions in the catalog, please don't hesitate to ask questions of us. We're happy to answer them tonight and going forward. We have a number of great students who are excited about, who are in Honors Studio Art. And a lot of those kids, you'll be seeing a show in the Worcester Academy Performance Center this spring of some of the work of our advanced levels. That's just a slight change over that. We used to call that Honors Independent Studio Art. We've just made an adjustment to Honors Studio Art because it's really not an independent study. We are very much present for those kids and directing them in their learning and having them set goals, etc. And that's really for the student who really is passionate about art and has a lot of extensive coursework experiences they go through. Any of our courses in the arts that do not have a specific advanced section, so there's ceramics is a prerequisite for advanced ceramics and so on, but crafts, new art media, where you might explore something like e-textiles that Mr. Epstein mentioned, all of those courses, if they don't have an expressed advanced level, they can be taken a second time for credit. We welcome kids doing that. Okay. Get over to my colleague.
So I'll be talking a little bit about the theater and the music offerings. Theater. So intro to the intro level course in theater, which is a prerequisite for any other course in the theater division, is Elements of Theater. It's a semester length course and it's offered both in the fall and the spring. So there's an opportunity to get started in that path if that's what you're interested in anytime during your 9th grade year or later. And then from there, if you're a person who wants to follow that path in theater, you could go from Elements of Theater into Scene Study, which again can be taken for repeated credit. You can repeat it for credit. And then we have a new course being offered this year called Advanced Acting, which is just what it sounds like. It's the opportunity for a passionate student of acting to go deeper, and we're excited about that. And from there, a student might pursue directing or producing a play. Those two courses are actually offered in alternate years, and in the upcoming year we'll be offering producing a play. The prerequisite of Elements of Theater also does qualify a student to get involved in the costume design program. We have several classes there, costume design and construction, and you don't have to know how to sew. If your student is feeling anxious about that, please let them know. And Style by Decade, or an independent study in costume design. All of these theater classes are elective, are semester-length classes. Okay, and music. So a few changes in music this year as well, all very exciting. In the vocal music division, we now, the introductory level course is no longer called chorus. It is called ensemble singing, and it's been revised this year. It's a semester-length course with a full-year option, and it involves an exposure to ensemble singing, group singing, performance, and it's a very, very fun class. No audition is required. Everybody is welcome, so it's a great introductory level class. From there, a student interested in singing could take the concert chorale class, which we currently call Advanced Chorus, but now it'll be called Concert Chorale, and that's where we draw the premier ensemble group, the Academy Singers, comes out of the concert chorale class. You can take private lessons if you're enrolled in either of these vocal ensembles. You're encouraged to do that. You would see Mr. Irving about that. In the instrumental division, we have the wind ensemble and the orchestra. These are both full-year classes. And in the orchestra, if you are a percussion or a wind student, you need to audition with Mr. Baudry. So that's just a caveat to be aware of, and that is information that's in the course guide. From these courses, we do have some additional electives. Music and culture and history of American popular music, some upper level electives. These are non-performance based, but they can be a really great way for a student who is interested in music, who wants to connect in a different way to music, or a student who's interested in music but just not interested in performing it themselves. So these are really fun courses to take. Again, music studies is the companion course to our ensembles. If you're in an instrumental or a vocal ensemble, you are eligible for these private lessons and encouraged to take advantage of that. Those students who are interested in going further on the path with music can take music theory at levels 1 and 2. Those are semester-length courses, or the full year, and beyond that, the full year option for AP Music Theory. So we have great offerings in the arts, and just to go back to the beginning, and some of the folks here who are from the 8th grade, reminding you that although, as Mr. Mallet said, there isn't that much choice as you come into the 9th grade. One of the great places where you do have choice is in the arts. So we really encourage your kids to think about not necessarily getting their requirements out of the way, but really looking to them also as an opportunity to make some choices, to explore more, or to go more deeply in an area of interest that they're already aware of. Again, we look forward to seeing you after for questions, and thank you very much for your attention.
Hi, my name is Dana Huff, and I'm the English Department Chair. I want to start by talking about what we do in 9th grade with English. So most 9th grade students do take World Literature 1, and as Mr. Mallet said, pretty much all of our 8th graders will be recommending to take World Literature 1. We do have quite a few offerings for students who need to work on English language learning. For English language learners, because we do have a sizable international student population, and in order to better serve their needs and help them learn how to speak and how to write and how to listen using English, we have several English courses available for them. 1F, 2F, and EFL language are all very language-based courses that focus on grammar, they focus on speaking and listening skills, whereas the EFL literature and the topics in world literature are literature and analysis of that literature at a level where EFL students can perform well. And the goal of these classes is to get the students' proficiency to the level where they can join the regular classes. So after, I guess in the next couple of weeks or so, you should start hearing your students talking to you about what they might be taking next year. In World Literature 2, in the 10th grade, we have 2 levels. And teachers right now are working on recommendations for either World Literature 2 or Honors World Literature 2. The main difference between the regular and the honors level, aside from a few text differences, is that honors students study the literature and are expected to do writing at a more independent level and at a higher level of analysis and synthesis. So they're working more independently, like I said, and going a little bit more deep with the analysis. Other than that, we have some very similar course offerings for EFL students, depending on what their English skills are and what they need to take. So moving into 11th grade is when we start to have some AP course offerings. Now, I want to make sure that everybody understands that you do not need to have taken an honors 10th grade World Literature 2 class in order to take AP. But I also want to reiterate what Mr. Segesti said. AP is really designed for students who love English. They love reading, they love writing. Not because they, want to take an AP class, but because they really want to study literature at that level. So students can take American Studies and Literature, which is our standard American literature course, and AP English Literature does focus a lot on American literature, but there's also the rhetorical analysis, some nonfiction readings, and the goal is to prepare for the AP language exam at the end of the year. So hopefully, if your students are interested in AP, they are talking to their teachers about the possibility of taking that class, and it's something that they're thinking about. And in our senior year, we can move on, we have a lot of electives in addition to a second AP course that we offer, AP English Literature. Now we do have a lot of students who take AP English Language in their junior year and they move on to take AP English Literature also in their senior year. But we also have quite a few students who decide, you know, AP English Language, one AP was what they wanted to take and move on to take electives. And we also have students who choose to double up, and they will take AP English Literature and they'll also take electives, because we have a wide variety of electives that are very interesting. We offer creative writing. Students write short fiction and poetry. This year, Ms. Kinkle taught the course, and the students created their own chapbooks in poetry. From scratch, really. They sewed the books together and bound them and everything. It was very cool. Into the Wild is a great course for students who are interested in the environment and ecology and getting into nature and reading about nature. British literature is a standard course in a lot of schools. Students taking British literature would study the canon of British literature from the Middle Ages up into the modern day. Code of the Warrior sort of examines the role of the warrior and his special place in society and how he functions in several different types of famous stories, from stories like the Odyssey all the way up into some modern day stories. Detective fiction is pretty much what it sounds like. It's a great course for students who enjoy mysteries, detective stories, whodunit types of stories. Modernism focuses on modernist writers from the early 20th century, writers who were disillusioned after World War I and felt lost, the lost generation, as you may have heard it, and were trying to find themselves again. And we offer a few of these classes also, both in spring semester, because they've proven to be very popular over the years. But in addition, we also have some other choices: women in literature, examining the women writers and women in fiction from early days up until the present. Comparative mythology, an opportunity to really explore world mythologies from a lot of different cultures. Postmodernism and the American myth, sort of looking at the disenfranchised immigrant voices, other voices, and in the more modern society. And disenchantment fantasy literature is an examination of fantasy literature. So students who like authors like Tolkien, or who really enjoyed the Harry Potter series, might enjoy taking a look at fantasy literature. And I wanted to touch on, like, what electives should students choose, because that was one of the questions that came up. And I think it's a good idea for the students to talk to their teachers and find out a little bit more about what the courses entail. They can also talk to the teachers who have taught the courses in the past. For instance, I have a student right now who absolutely loves Sherlock Holmes. And he said, what elective should I take? And I said, well, definitely detective fiction, because I know for a fact they're going to read some Sherlock Holmes in that class, but he might also find that he'll get an opportunity to read it in British literature as well. So that's also an option. So I would really recommend that students talk to their teachers about the courses that they want to take, because I think that's going to be the best course in terms of finding out which courses will cover the things that they're interested in. And these electives are a great opportunity to explore an interest in depth, in some depth. And we also have writing across the curriculum. This course is designed mainly for students who really need to work on some writing skills before they enter college. And it is another option for seniors to take. But if you have any questions about any of the English courses or about the English curriculum, I'll be happy to answer them afterward. I'm going to pass the microphone along now to my colleague, Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin McCarthy. I'm the chair of the History and Social Science Department. I feel like I should ask everyone to get up and do 5 jumping jacks right now. I've been here for a while. It feels like I'm at the end of one of those 75-minute classes. But the History and Social Science one is a little bit briefer. The requirements for Worcester Academy is 2 years of history and social science. Somebody asked a good question earlier: what do colleges look for? If you talk to our college counseling department, they're going to say a minimum of 3, really. And if you talk to anybody in the history department, they really want those 3 to be 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. That being said, some kids really love science and are going to double up sophomore year, so they might not take the sophomore class, right? 9th grade, everybody is going to take World Civ 1, except for some international students are going to take topics in world history. So there's no choice there, really. Sophomore year, you get into a choice. You have AP World Civ or World Civ 2, or topics in world history. The AP World is a requirement of an A- in World Civ 1, plus the recommendation of your teacher. You have to meet both of those requirements to get into the class. If you don't meet both of those requirements, there's an appeal process. That includes submitting a writing sample to me, and I will go back and speak with the teacher, and then I meet with each student individually and say, hey, you know, what do you think you did in the class? How can you do better? Why do you really want to take AP World? So that's for sophomore year. Junior year, also still pretty simple. We have American Studies and History, or we have AP US History. Now, science says, if you love biology, take AP Bio. That's not the case with history. We don't feel like the only kids that are taking AP US History are kids that love history. The course is intensive. It does require some independent learning, but it also is about writing, like many of our courses, and critical thinking. And if you like to write, or if you want to challenge yourself to become a better writer and a better critical thinker, AP US History is a good course for that, and obviously it's a challenge for you. Then there's topics in American history. There are also 3 semester electives that you can take as junior. Now, the other thing that the AP US History teachers wanted me to pass on to the students, which I did in assembly last week, and to you, if kids think they're going to want to take US History AP as a junior, they really should be encouraged to not skip that sophomore year history, because that's what some kids do if they double up. I'm passing the message on. What we need to do also is make that course so inviting to kids that they really don't want to miss it, and that's what we're working on doing. Next. So senior year we have 3 AP 4-year electives, AP Gov, AP Econ, AP European History, and if you took AP as a junior, and this goes for the AP US History course, if you took AP World as a sophomore, you need a B- in that, plus a teacher recommendation to take AP. If you took AP US, you need a B- in AP US to get recommended for those. If you took American History, you need A- and the teacher rec to get recommended for those. But as with AP US History and AP World, if you have an appeal process where you submit a writing sample, you meet with me, it's possible to get into the class. And then we have several semester electives which change year to year, and that's what we're offering next year, and pretty self-explanatory. So any questions, I'll be in Walker Gallery after this, and I'm going to pass it along to Senior Butler.
Hi everybody, my name is Anthony Butler. I'm the chair of the World Languages Department. Why am I last? I don't know, when languages should be first, right? Raise your hand if you know a second language. How about a third language? 4th? Anyone follow 5? Go 4. No, that's great. Well, you know something, learning a language is very, very important. I don't think any other time in history has learning a language been more important. Learning a language, of course, makes the world a better place today and tomorrow. It's a vitally important thing for education, but also for global constituency. And at Worcester Academy's World Language Department, you're not going to find a more competitive group of teachers teaching your children language. Each one of our courses schools your kids in communicative modalities. So they're presenting, they're interpreting authentic materials, they're speaking interpersonally. And while they're doing that, while they're honing modalities, they're also getting closer and closer to cultural competency. All of our courses do this, whether they're elementary level or they're advanced. They're interdisciplinary, they're inquiry-based, they're student-centered, and they're real-world. This is a great, great language department. I visited many schools, and this department is spectacular. That's why I work here. Just a few things. I have some postulates here. First and foremost, we offer 4 languages. We actually offer 6 languages, but we got 4 ready and to go, and all of our languages go from 1 to AP. A student at Worcester Academy needs to complete 2 years of a language, and that's a crying shame, ladies and gentlemen. It should be 3 to 4 years, maybe 5. You ask every year of your life, it's a lifelong learning thing. Mr. Baker has already emphasized the importance of learning a language. It's true. Students that are in our middle school that have taken A and B can qualify for the second year of a language. So for example, I have a group of wonderful students in the Spanish B, a lot of parents I see out here in the audience. They can go on to Spanish 2 and have a jump start on their language career. Students entering Worcester Academy from another school, however, have to take a placement examination, and those are administered through Mrs. Peterleitner's office. We do honor language waivers, but they are considered on a case-by-case basis. They're not guaranteed. There are a number of different voices that need to be heard in making that decision. So, Steve, let's go on to the language offerings. I don't have all of these paths. So if you're a language, you're just going to go, we can do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, I mean, it's amazing. You know, it's huge. You know, I'm not even a math teacher. So 1, 2, 3, like I said, the first 3 levels are primarily elementary. They build simple syntax, complex syntax. Students are studying themes. They're looking at different elements of culture, but they're always performing the language. Once they get into higher honors, more is being demanded of them. Authentic materials become more prominent, and eventually as they enter the AP levels, in particular Spanish, like I say, I'm a Spanish teacher, I know this program very well. I teach Spanish literature and culture, one of our final AP terminal courses. Many schools don't offer this course, but they offer language, but you know, this department is so well-versed in history and literature, it made this course happen. To get to these levels, you have to usually end up in the honors track, which is at 3, but that's not necessarily so. You can get into AP if you want to take if you're in the regular track as well. How about, let's go to the next language, Steve. And there's French. So basically the same thing, 1, 2, 3, elementary, simple syntax, complex syntax, strong grammar. Then we enter into either an honors or a non-honors track. Thank you, that's great. We do now offer a French 5, so for students who don't want to take the AP track, they can just end in 5. And that's a wonderful course too. Ms. Gear will be teaching that. Oh, thanks, Tim. No, I can just use the shadow. It's like Plato's cave with the verb. Next, we offer a wonderful Latin course. Our Latin program, again, is one of the best, I think, in the state. We have 2 wonderful teachers. 1, 2, 3, again. In order to get into AP Latin, Caesar, and Virgil, you do have to take Honors Latin 3. And that will bring you to that level. But there are concessions that are made for students, again, that are very passionate and very skilled and are willing to sacrifice the time to take these courses. Finally, let's go to Mandarin Chinese. Mandarin Chinese, we have one of the best Mandarin Chinese programs in the whole state. I'm convinced. I spend a lot of time with our teachers. I'm constantly learning more about what it takes to be a Chinese teacher. It's an amazing thing. It's nothing like taking Spanish, that's for sure. It's much more complex. Again, 1, 2, and 3, the basics of the language, and then going on to more complex challenges and tasks. A lot of what informs our courses, I should say, is project-based learning, but because language is an acquisition, it's a discipline that's founded on acquisition, then it becomes more performance-based. So, for example, Mr. Crate and Ms. Liu, they're challenging their students to use the language in very complex scenarios. AP Chinese language and culture is the culminating point. And in Chinese, too, we do offer post-AP courses as well as independent studies in Chinese. So, thank you very much.